worries. I was just want to comment on it.
Left my ring at home.
It's okay. You're dripped out.
I'm trying to get this tan off. It's wearing
Good to go?
ring tan. Like, you can't really see anymore because I was outside today. But
All right, welcome everybody. We are officially back live with the Motivate Me 313 podcast. This is season 2, episode 36. We are winding down on season 2. Sorry about that. I had YouTube on loud because my daughters were in here. They wanted to watch a little bit of YouTube. But shout out again. This is season 2, episode 36 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We are officially live. To the right of me, you got my sister Sada Thabit. She's in the building today. And then to the left of me, you got my sister Abir Thabit. As you can see, I don't call them big sister, little sister anymore. This is the new rule. Abir said, let them decide. Let the people at home decide. So we're going to let the people at home decide who's big sister, little sister, and where I'm at in that ranking. And our guests for today, we have Noor and Zaynab. Go ahead and give them a round of applause. Ramsey. They are in the building today, coming straight from the other school in the state of Michigan, here to share their thoughts about underrepresentation and everything else in between. So we're gonna definitely dive into a serious topic that I think that needs to be addressed. Even when we do address it, I feel like we still don't address it enough, because until we start seeing major change, we gotta still talk about this kind of topic for sure. But before we discuss it, be sure to subscribe to all of our pages. You have YouTube, Oz Media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Oz Media. You can listen to the show later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. And if you want to call in, if you have any questions to the panel, to the people that are here, to anyone, feel free to call us. The number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. Shout out to our sponsors, the Balkan House, Hanley International Academy, Qahwa House, BC Adhesives, and Juice Box and Hamtramck. We appreciate all of them and all their support. I have to start off with Qahwa House, because this Saturday their Canton location is officially going to be opening up. So, I know the ad is going to say coming soon, but this Saturday, make sure you stop by for their grand opening at 1:30. Qahwa House, their 6th location now, which will be in Canton, Michigan. I know people in Canton are excited for Qahwa House to be there. So go ahead, Ramsey, run that Qahwa House ad, and then we'll get the show on the road. The Qahwa House. The Qahwa House is the first coffee shop of its kind. The Qahwa House is a family business established in 2017 for the sole purpose of providing the best quality Yemeni coffee with no added preservatives, artificial additives, or flavors. You can stop by Qahwa House to try their famous Yemeni latte, Adani Shahi, Mafawad, and Jubani coffees. You can also stop by to try their delicious pastries, such as the Yemeni favorite sabaya, their sembusas, and their new menu item, Everything Mini Bites. There are currently 4 Qahwa House locations, with 2 of them coming soon as well, to make it a total of 6. Their 4 locations is West Dearborn, East Dearborn, Williamsburg, New York, Lombard, Illinois, with 2 new locations coming in Canton, Michigan, and Petersburg, New Jersey. So no matter where you're at in the country, be sure to stop by a Qahwa House and get a glimpse of what the Yemeni culture is all about. All right, we are officially back and ready to get the show on the road. My wife wants to chime in, and she says go blue. She is a U of M graduate, so she definitely wanted to throw that out there. That's, whenever I say that line, a lot of people, it's kind of a shot at a lot of people, because a lot of people that I know go to University of Michigan. And then Aboud, one of our students, said, what's up, Mr. Thabit? Shout out to Aboud. He is also graduating or getting promoted Thursday as well with Ramsey. Go ahead, Ramsey. Give yourself a round of applause, Ramsey. He is officially, you know what? I can't do this to his mom right here. I can't do it to his mom right now. I might get a little emotional right now, but he's officially going to be done at Hanley in 1.5 days, or we could say 2 days pretty much. Ramsey's officially done, but Aboud will be done as well. And Aboud, I got a famous line for him. I told him from now on, don't let anyone behind you, okay? I told him I'm going to tell him that forever. He's one of my flag football players, and we had a little trouble of letting people behind us and scoring touchdowns on us. Yeah. So I told him, I was like, forever, I'm going to tell him that from now on, don't let anybody behind you. Noor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So I met Noor quickly from a, what was it exactly?
Dinner. I think it was.
Try to bring the mic closer.
Yeah, and by the way, you want to just speak up just a little bit, but go ahead, Noor. It was like I don't want to.
I think it was a fundraising dinner for some type of organization.
Yeah,
For
I think that's a great way to break it down. Shout out to Dr. Najat. You know, she got us there, and that's how we met. And I was like, yeah, we definitely got to get her on the show. And we swung and missed the first time, but now we got her back, and she brought her friend Zaynab. But Noor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself first, what you do, and everything else in between?
Yeah, so my name is Nooralhuda, and I am a student at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. A little bit about me is I am from Baghdad, Iraq, born and raised. I grew up on the east side of Baghdad, Rasafa, and kind of lived there for 8 years. And then after a series of unfortunate events, moved to Syria, where I went to school and then applied for asylum to come to the U.S. And I've been in Dearborn, Michigan ever since. But now I'm in Ann Arbor. I'm studying biological anthropology, which is a lump of nonsense. But basically what it means is just studying the genetic code, kind of going through the different processes of evolution as they impact different organisms and populations, and try to figure out through biology and through cultural studies who we are as individuals and as part of a collective. And it's like my passion, and I really like anthropology. But yeah, I'm here. But
Yeah.
Zaynab's cooler than me, so
Excuse me,
Zaynab will
no.
talk.
No.
Yeah.
Before Zaynab talks, so what kind of job would that? What would you get?
Oh, so I always go on this tangent about biological anthropology, and then basically I'm a closeted pre-medical student, so
Okay.
I'm gonna be MCATing soon and
Okay.
going through pursuing that. But hopefully, inshallah, the goal has always been to pursue an MD PhD in anthropology, because I really think that I always see myself participating in our community in different capacities, and I really do want to go back home one day. And I feel like the background of anthropology being a discipline that focuses on culture and focuses on the intersection between history and the now, and just in a way and through a lens that is very interesting and engaging. And I feel like anthropology, it's I can talk so much about anthropology, but basically it's really, really more important than people think it out to be, because basically everything we know about cultures outside of our own culture once was an ethnography, and ethnography is an anthropological study. So basically researchers go in different places of the world, have their little research projects and then publish them, and then that publication kind of gets, it bleeds into our different classrooms and different settings, and when we're learning about different things, and that ethnography becomes assimilated into our perception of cultures outside of our own culture. So everything we know about the world outside of our own world has once been an ethnography.
Yep.
And what's really sad is 86% of PhD holders in the study of anthropology are white. And so for the length of however long anthropology's been a discipline, the majority of people that are going out there and studying groups of people outside of the contemporary European cultures, white people basically go into our countries and treat us like case studies and write about us in a way that is not very objective, and tell our own stories. Maybe some are well-intentioned here and there, but generally giving them the power to tell our stories is just something that I've always not morally agreed with. So the reason I'm passionate in anthropology is to have the skill set that I would need to tell my own story and tell our collective story without waiting for a white person to tell it.
No, I love it. When I heard you speak, I'm like, I've never known anyone that has went for a degree in anthropology. So
Yeah, it's
kudos to
it's
you.
definitely not something that you know,
common.
the monolithic Arab parent would think to let their child do.
Yeah.
My parents don't understand what it means, so they're like, go do your thing. But yeah.
As long as you do your thing, I mean,
Yeah.
stay focused. Zaynab, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And then when you do, I always want to make sure you also talk into the mic too as well.
Sure.
But go ahead, Zaynab, tell us a little bit about your story.
All right, so my name is Zaynab Elkolaly, and I consider myself a native Michigander despite living in Wisconsin for 4 years of my life. We don't talk about that though.
We actually got a sponsor from Wisconsin.
Oh,
That's BC
nice.
Adhesives, yeah. So great
okay,
people. We
then
love them.
For this
Yeah.
moment, we stand Wisconsin.
Yeah.
At the ripe age of 7, my father decided that I would be going to U of M, and so he moved us to Ann Arbor, and that's probably the only
That's so
reason
funny.
that I don't live in Dearborn, honestly, because, you know, a lot of fathers don't want their daughters commuting.
Yeah.
So, you know, when my kid goes to school in 11 years, she's going to be right next door.
Yeah.
Lord
I think
knows
I'm
what
gonna
will
move too
happen.
when he picks whatever college.
Yeah.
He's gonna go
Yeah.
to.
Thinking ahead,
I
it's
heard-
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, he's very smart.
Yeah.
I decided to pursue nuclear engineering and political science. Noor and I were just joking about how ironic that is, given our background. On the topic of representation, I'm the only Arab or Muslim in my cohort. It's a very militarized field. Most of the department funding is from the United States military and government-affiliated laboratories. And so basically my particular interest in nuclear science is in renewable energy and how those technologies can also translate into medicine and other sort of like runoff fields, because the beauty of the nucleus of an atom is its technology is very applicable, it's very small, so you can modify it and implement it in a wide range of ways. And so in this pursuit, I've sort of found myself like being the only person speaking against the military affiliation in a room full of Ann Arbor white people. Noor will know exactly what this is. They're very liberal, they're very inclusive, but when you tell them, hey, if you want to truly believe in DEI and practice DEI, which is
Diversity,
equity and inclusion, and you still get funding from an entity that's absolutely plundered the entirety of the globe, particularly the Middle East, then you are not being inclusive and you're not being equitable. But you know, the dilemma is that's where they get all their funding, because nuclear is such a weaponized field. So naturally the military would have the biggest stake in it. And so I'm particularly working in research in fusion, which is basically sort of like a new type of renewable energy. But it's still difficult. It's still hard trying to start mainstream conversations about sustainably implementing nuclear power, equitably doing it, centering voices of people who've been historically disadvantaged by our military and our nuclear capacities. And so I sort of just went on a very technical rant, but like that's the background of why I'm studying what I'm studying. Political science obviously fits into that, that's why I'm doing that. But yeah, not as cool as Noor. Noor had a whole explanation, but
No, I'm very proud of you ladies going kind of like out of the norm
Ordinary.
and you know, just believing in yourself and following what you really are passionate about, because not a lot of people are that confident to go after something they're passionate about. They want something that's safe, you know.
Yeah.
So
And you can imagine
What
like
else
the
do you guys-
grasshoppers that like are in the room when Zaynab mentions that she's from Iran and she's Egyptian.
Oh,
And so
very mixed family.
I was just about to ask you where you're from.
Yeah.
So you said Egypt and Iran.
So my dad is Egyptian.
Okay.
My mom is Iranian and white European. At least the European is Scottish, so we're not colonizer white. That gives me comfort, but I mostly identify with the Middle Eastern side, obviously.
Nice.
In case the necklace isn't obvious.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out, but I couldn't see that far.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just kind of take off the gold, and then it's Yemen, right? Well, and
That's what I'm
Africa
saying.
silhouette.
I'm like, hold on, pause.
Yeah.
Very cute.
No, it is. So we got
Very
Egyptian,
drippy.
Iran, Iraq, and Yemen all represented right here.
And Scottish.
And Scottish too. Gotta give a shout out to the
We don't
Scottish.
need to talk about that.
So Again, we're here to talk about underrepresentation, representation period, and underrepresentation. So, I guess why is it important to address underrepresentation in social frameworks? We can start off with you, Abid. I know you haven't said much so far yet. So, Abid, why do you feel it's important to address underrepresentation in social frameworks?
I feel like everybody deserves a say. You know, everyone comes from a different part of the world, and everyone has different ideas, and you never know, like, what you can learn from someone, what they can bring to the table. And it's honestly, we are in the United States of America, especially in this country. We're supposed to be united. Everyone has a freedom of speech and, you know, basically freedom to live. And we deserve to make sure that we have a say in what happens and what we want and what changes we want to see.
How about you, Sada?
Yeah, and like Abid was saying, we do live in America where literally everyone's immigrants, and being able to be equal and being able to share how different traditions and cultures and ideas and whatnot. It shouldn't really matter who you are, where you're from, or anything like that. If you could bring something good and unity to the table, you should be accepted.
Zaynab, what are your thoughts on that? Just underrepresentation in social frameworks.
Honestly, the way that I look at it is like from my experience growing up, and especially knowing that I want to pursue academia, as Noor mentioned. When people are discussing our communities, if they even discuss them at all, if we even get a proxy seat at the table, it's as if we're like zoo animals or a case study. We're not actually consulted. Our views and our opinions and experiences aren't put on the forefront. And so this has definitely impacted me growing up as I became more aware of the world. I knew that aside from the Muslim community, like, I was on my own.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, we're working to change that. But carrying this identity is a very isolating experience, especially in this country. In fact, if Dearborn didn't exist, I'd probably go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, same way with because we feel like, because we grew up in hamtramck, like hamtramck helped us, open our minds up so much, because we realize, that, there are other people out there in the world. It's not just us. But we get that vibe from Dearborn too, because there's so many different Arab here and so many different other backgrounds and cultures and religions and stuff. So definitely it's like we're blessed to grow up in these areas where there are different, backgrounds and beliefs and things like that, so that we can keep our minds open, so that, we know how important it is to be represented in those communities, and whenever we do have a seat at that table. Noor, what are your thoughts on that situation about underrepresentation in social frameworks?
Yeah, so similar to Zaynab's experience, growing up in Dearborn, I felt like it was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because you had the comfort of being around people who practice the same, belief system and are from a similar region, and there's a comfort of familiarity. But at the same time, I felt like going from Dearborn to a place as diverse as Ann Arbor, where you have way more people, and the spectrum is a lot bigger to who you're going to encounter, from what place in the world, what do they believe, what identities do they hold. So I feel like growing up in Dearborn, where things are kind of like monolithic, where there's Lebanese, Iraqi, Yemeni here and there, Palestinians, but like overall, very similar, very familiar grounds to navigate. And then going to Ann Arbor, where so many different people. And all of these people have different cultures, different customs, different ways of life. And just trying to navigate those differences is really hard when you haven't been exposed to it before. In Dearborn, I wasn't exposed to anything more or outside of the spectrum of Arabness or of Islam. And so it's definitely been a culture shock for me to assimilate into Ann Arbor culture and to navigate my way around groups and communities there, and to find my place where I feel comfortable in my own identity in a sea of people that also have their own identities and maybe conflicting perspectives about certain things. So it's definitely double-edged sword where I don't know if it's like the right thing to say, but it's a blessing and a curse kind of. But for underrepresentation, I feel like coming in from a storyteller's perspective, I just wanted to talk about this topic because there's such a limited there are limited opportunities for people of color to tell their own stories, and one way we could kind of broaden the scope and open up opportunities is by having conversations like this that are directional and are addressing real life things as they happen.
For sure. So that's kind of like the social part. What were you about to say, Abir?
No, I wanted to add on because I feel like I can definitely relate. I know, especially my younger years, there wasn't as much Arab in hamtramck, but once we got older, it did get like a lot more came in. It was not until like I never felt weird or kind of like left out, until I went to college. I went to Medina, and Medina's the Catholic college, and I had a scholarship there, so I was like, I'm going there. I don't care. Like at the end of the day, I'm gonna go. But I felt left out. Like, I really did. Like, I tell my sisters all the time, I was like, I didn't have, like, the fun college experience where I had my friends in my classroom. Like, I didn't have any friends, and it was weird, and no one really wanted to be my friend until they heard me speak, until they heard my idea. Like, they judged me, like, right away. You know what I'm saying? So that social aspect, it's real. Like, if you're not dressed a certain way or you're not, like, whatever, I had to literally prove myself, and I hated that. And I did start college a little bit later because, I had my son, and I had to work full-time or whatever. And I went part-time for a long time. So they were a lot younger, too. But still, at the same time, I'm like, oh, my God, like, they just don't know. Like, I'm just like you. Like, I like that, too. I whatever. But there is, like, a prejudged, like, it's definitely isolating.
I don't know if you felt this, being a hijabi, but, like, people tend to essentialize us. Like, the behavior of one represents the behavior of all. Even in lesser contexts of, like, extremists and terrorism. Just, like... Yeah. I personally feel the need to be extra, extra nice because it's been drilled into my head. You represent Islam.
Yep.
Like, I can't necessarily be my own person. If I'm having an off day, well, too bad. I have to smile because I don't know if Karen at the cash register is going to leave thinking that Muslims are just mean and nasty people.
Yep. Speaking of cash registers, I was at Washtenaw Creamery the other day.
Oh, no.
It was like a Friday, and it was really hot on Friday, and I wanted to get ice cream as I was driving back home. And I never really see the owner around, but he was like there that day, or someone was there who like was in charge, and it was really busy. And so I was standing in line like everyone else. The line was like curved around the store, and when it came my turn to like say what I wanted, the girls in front of me like were getting like pop cans or something, and I wanted ice cream. And I think he assumed that I didn't speak English.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They 100%. Yeah. Like, oh, you don't have an accent? No, I was born and raised here. Stop. Like,
no, so he was like, he's like, are you going to get pop or ice? Like,
oh, my God.
I want a butter pecan waffle cone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah. So that kind of, like, covers the social part of it. How about the systemic part of it? How do you... why is it important to address the underrepresentation and the systemic framework aspect of things? And we could start off with you, Zaynab. I don't think we started off with you yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on the way here, actually, Noor and I were watching this TED Talk about a woman explaining the importance of the census and why MENA should be included in the census. And we were sort of just laughing at the fact that, like, very visibly, like, POC Arabs have to mark themselves as white. Like, it's just the funniest thing. In fact, when I was little, and I didn't necessarily grasp the concept of, like, racial dynamics in this country, I would mark, like, on the, what was it, those standardized tests, the MEEP, I forgot. I would mark African American because I figured my dad is African and I live in America. And then my mom told me, that's not quite it. So there's, like, this, not just this exclusion of Arabs and Muslims and adjacent communities, but, like, this lack of acknowledgement of us at all systemically. As the woman was saying in the TED Talk, in order for proper research to be done on our communities, in order to gauge how much of us there are in this country, we have to actually exist. Right
Mhm.
now, we're just fighting to exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're afraid. I feel like they're afraid of
Change.
no, like even like acknowledging us. They're
Yeah.
afraid
Mhm.
that we're here, that we're actually making an improvement. You know, we're actually being part of society. We want a say. We're like, you know, there's political leaders now. There's like they're just afraid.
It's really interesting because I can't verify how accurate this is, but I could have sworn that a few years ago I read something regarding the Mina box, and it was actually Levant Arabs who were very white passing that came to this country and were facing discrimination, and they demanded the right to be counted as white on the census. And this is a whole other can of worms about like white privilege and passingness within the Arab
I
community.
think there were. It was a whole thing. It was part of the process of being naturalized.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a specific law, and this is where systemic things happen pertaining to underrepresentation. And why it matters to talk about this. So basically, there were like a set of immigration laws back in the early 1800s when the rush of immigrants from Syria, Lebanon, Yemen to people were coming into the U.S. just to seek jobs and better like life outcomes. And basically, like the set of laws prevented anyone who is not like racially white to identify or to have the opportunity to be naturalized as a U.S. citizen. So a group of like Syrian immigrants used their identity as Christians and also like their like tendency to be white passing, and kind of used the spectrum of Christianity. Which to white people on the other side of the equation that are the policymakers, using Christianity, which is often associated with European ideals, using that to like have them sympathize and validate their like proximity to whiteness.
Yeah.
So they really fought for that, as Zaynab said, in order for them to secure their rights,
Yeah.
their citizenship, right to own property, different types of privileges that come with being a U.S. citizen.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely like, and there was this whole thing that me and Zaynab work on an organization called SAFE together. It's basically Students Allied for Freedom and Equality. It's the SJP chapter at the University of Michigan, so we're Students Justice for Palestine. And in the beginning of the year, I remember like doing a small segment or talking in some kind of conversation on this very topic, and basically like a part of the argument that the I guess earlier Levantine immigrants had to gain their like a chance at naturalization is they argued that Jesus was Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
I remember I had
I was about to say, I heard this before.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
told us
Yeah,
the
yeah,
story.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was like, well, if I'm not gonna be considered white, Jesus is basically Arab. You know what He's
Yeah.
from where I'm from. So are you saying? And then that's when they're like, okay.
Yeah,
It was
you're
like
right. Okay, up here. But yeah, for sure.
he said a lot more funnier, but
Yeah.
No,
It
that-
really stuck with
Which
me.
is insane, to be honest with you. Like, come to think of it, all these years, and they're considering us or having us, consider ourselves as white. But then at the same time, it's like even in cities like Hamtramck, where it end up being a lot of Muslims immigrating there and stuff like that. Like, there's still schools that have to fight for Eid off. So, like being us, being represented and systematically or socially is just an ongoing, fight.
For sure.
And like for schools, like I know, and some of the schools are now having because of resources. So if like the Department of Education sees that they're white, they don't assume that they speak another language or whatever.
Yeah.
So they don't have those resources for EL for English learners. And then so now they're putting them as Asian so they can get those research. Like it's just such a mess. Like just give us a box.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is it? If you guys may know, I mean, maybe you don't. But like, what's holding up on giving Arab a box? Like that's what I don't. Like, they don't have enough research. They don't have enough numbers. The numbers are not there. Like, what's the
certain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
So there's this whole thing right now that is being spearheaded by organizations like Access and different MENA advocacy groups throughout the country. The Count MENA In initiative that is fighting to have a MENA box on the 2030 census. And I guess like it's like a whole process to try to get that like implemented. It does have to be approved by like Congress and also the president, or I don't know, some kind of.
It's a process.
It's a process, and the reason it hasn't been implemented or like hasn't really been a hot topic like it is now throughout the years is because the census happens once every 10 years, and if you think about it, like, of course, like the racialization of Arabs and stereotyping of Arabs and people from the MENA region in general has existed and predated 9/11. But when 9/11 happened, and that was like 2 decades ago, like the position of Arab, the position of people of color, the racialization of MENA identifying people started to occur at rates that we haven't experienced before 9/11. So 9/11 was definitely a trigger, which year after year continues to emphasize why Middle Eastern, North African people cannot be identified as white, because white people don't see us as white. I don't see myself as a white woman. Like when a Karen sees me walking down the street in a hijab, she doesn't say, "Oh my God, that's a white girl." She's just like me. I'm gonna feel so safe around her. You know, when I'm in the airport, saying to my mom, "When it lagad or when it junta," she's gonna hear me. She's like, "What the heck is this like terrorist saying here? Like, I'm gonna go talk to the flight attendant to switch my seat." Like, she doesn't perceive me as white, and obviously with my identity, I don't perceive myself as white, and so like it's a continuous battle. Within both like social frameworks and systemic frameworks as to both of which like emphasize why we need to, you know, be able to identify ourselves with something that is more considerate of our experiences.
Yeah.
And like Abida was saying, like the funding is a really big part of it. Like, you know, schools definitely get funding based off of like their student populations, whether it's on a basis of like the socioeconomic status of the neighborhood, you know, property taxes and stuff like that, and ethnicity and race are also considered in what or how much money a school gets. And the same thing takes place in spheres of research. You know, we'll talk about that after. I'm gonna give myself a little break, and then we'll get into the. I feel like I'm talking so much.
No,
mashallah.
No, listen.
No,
so
you're making sense, and you're spitting truth.
listen, Noor, as you know, she's very passionate about this kind of topic. Shout out to Noor. She's the one that actually came up with the topic when I asked her what did you want to talk about. And you know, if you don't follow her on social media, you know, this is what she does. You know, I know you could speak up for it more. I seen a video, believe it or not. And you didn't even post it. It was circulating about the protest you guys had in Ann Arbor. I believe it
Omar
was.
Suleiman saw that video.
Yes. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
That
I mean,
was
go ahead.
amazing.
What did Omar Suleiman tell you?
So he visited campus he was giving a speech at Ann Arbor earlier in February, and we had like a couple of the student groups were just had like a lunch with him, and then he came to our safe table, like for our organization. And then we were talking to him about like what we're going through with SAFE, because it was just like the protest was like literally like 2 weeks before he came. So we're like, oh, like this happened, and now all these like Zionist organizations are trying to dox us and like trying to like figure like, you know, like get us in trouble with the university administration. He's like, I saw those protests. I saw you. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna say my son wearing jeans.
Yeah. So
No, he's actually really laid back.
He's so cool.
the funny thing is, when I seen the video, I was like, oh man, you know, like okay, you know, in Ann Arbor. And then I go see it. I'm like, oh, there's Noor, man. Look at Noor in the front, holding it down. I'm assuming, because you was starting to chant and everything. Did you guys organize it, like your organization?
Yeah. So
okay.
organized that
Basically, what
protest.
had happened was Kamala Harris was visiting campus. And so we know about her administration's blatant support.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. Can you
Oh,
bring the mic in
sorry.
closer? Yeah.
We know about the Biden-Harris administration's like very clear support of Israel. And so that's why we decided to protest her arrival. She was ironically talking about environmental protection and carbon neutrality. And so the angle we took was calling her out on that because Israel's pollution obviously is part of the devastation of Palestine. And so we took that angle as well as just general condemnation of her.
Military complex.
Yes, exactly. And so a few of us were actually invited in. And so when we were inside, we were holding up the Palestinian flag while Noor was holding down the fort outside. And she actually, I hope she saw us a few times. I think she did. And the people we were with kept saying, like, Zaynab, like, don't hide your hands because we're surrounded with Secret Service. Like, I'd be holding the flag and, like, my phone in one hand. But it might have looked suspicious.
Yeah.
And what happened is our friend Selma, she was holding a sign that said there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. And
I like that.
people on Twitter saw one solution and thought we were referencing Hitler's final solution.
Oh
So
my
we were called Klansmen.
That's what.
And
I think that's
Nazis.
how it kind of got the videos because
Oh my
I think it came from
God.
You see how
it
the
came-
media like
yeah, and then
takes what it wants?
yeah.
Yeah.
There was one comment where it was like, yes, it Arafat's de facto children.
Honestly, I'll take it. And that's on the topic of representation. The United States, the University of Michigan is a very Zionist campus. And if you do not hold Zionist views, if you are pro-Palestine, they're going to try to get you kicked out of the school. They're going to get you doxxed and put on a blacklist website called Canary, but we all know it's a joke. And it's
the whole
just
thing
like,
that-
yeah, it's honestly on the spectrum. You have people who are like, oh, why can't both sides just find peace? Like, you know, like very neutral, complacent people. And then you've got like die-hard Israel supporters who are the ones on the front lines trying to subdue the Palestinian cause by any means necessary. And I'm sure, Noor, you have a lot more to say on this.
Yeah, I mean, we could, you know, definitely get into. Cause I know that's a whole nother conversation for sure, for another moment too. So, Qamar chimed in, said, "Salam, beautiful people, humans, ummah. Qamar loves the Noor. I believe everyone has love, and we can bring Noor by breathing in love." Shout out to Qamar. She was on our show last year. We try to get her on this year, but inshallah for sure. If not this year, next season. So, you know, we kind of talked about everything with, you know, how underrepresentation can affect different kind of frameworks. So I guess my question to you now is, I guess, what is the result when people are underrepresented? I know you kind of touched on it. You guys want to maybe dive into it more like, you know, what would the results may be for those out there that may not fully understand? Like you said, funding matters in communities and schools. I don't know if you have anything else you guys want to
I
add.
just want to start off by, you know, when you were saying earlier how you had a hard time picking and choosing which box to check, or, you know, I feel like it did play a huge part in me not being as proud of who I am. You know, and I feel like, especially for the younger generation, especially for my son, especially for the ones that are still coming up, I want them to be proud. I want them to know that we made a difference, and we're part of history, and that we are just as, you know, great as every other culture, and just to know that they belong. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it really does hinder your ability. Yeah, 100%. Like, you feel like, you know, you can't go into certain fields that you guys went into. So that's why I was like, I'm very proud of you guys, you know, but you guys are a lot younger than I am. But like at one point, it's like we had to, you know, be safe. You know what I'm saying? Just follow, you know, stay in the lines. You know what I mean? Like, we're scared to protest or be loud or be heard because we're not supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to be confined because that's how they want us to be. And it's
They hold the stakes. So that
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah.
That's another evil of underrepresentation. When
Yeah.
so few of us are being represented, when our identity isn't considered the norm or mainstream, that's how we become essentialized and stereotyped. We can't exist on our own. We can't have the good and bad within our community. What the worst of us becomes all of us in their eyes. A white person can go like shoot up a school and people don't start condemning Christianity or like
Terrorism.
whiteness. Yeah, but if we did the same thing, khalas.
Muslim immigration.
But we're all
ban
terrorists
law,
right now.
whatever. Yeah, for
because
sure.
of what we're all terrorists right now
Exactly.
because of the situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it makes
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not fair.
There's definitely a particular invisibility that accompanies being a person from the MENA region, and that invisibility, shows itself in every place and space we enter. And coming in from like a research perspective, because in anthropology, like it's obviously very research focused, and our dual interest in pursuing the field of medicine one day, we know that ethnicity is a very big factor in kind. Okay, let's take healthcare for example. Like people of specific ethnicities and ethnic groups can be more prone to certain diseases that other populations are not subject to. Like someone from West Africa will have some, about like immunity to diseases, and then they'll have susceptibility to a certain set of diseases because of like epigenetics and because of just like, their environmental exposures. And people from like the Middle East will have different susceptibilities and immunities because of their respective environment and epigenetics and all of the factors that determine a person's health outcomes. And so it is something that is heavily considered when going through with treatment options and the diagnosis process as well. And so when we have to check in the box to identify ourselves as white, we are limiting and kind of just we are at a specific disadvantage because our environmental exposures, our genetics, our everything that we've endured is not accounted for in the diagnosis process and as well as the treatment process as well, because we're not identifying ourselves as what we are. And I say I literally am losing my train of thought. I think the midday crash.
No,
Yeah.
you're fine.
Yeah.
It
For
makes
sure,
complete
like,
sense. Like
Yeah.
we can literally save a life by knowing where someone comes
No,
from
for
and
sure.
knowing
Like, I was over
their
here
history
and I,
and
crashed.
That's the Qahwa house right there. It'll save you.
bro,
It
I'm gonna,
saves you.
like-
Shout out
No.
to Qahwa house.
And I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Growing up, I used to circle Asian until I was like they would have to tell me to do white because I didn't think it was fair.
Applying to college, I literally I did not. I never in my life have I checked in the white box. Even when I didn't know what the heck that meant.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not white. I'm Asian because Iraq is in Asia.
Yeah, so that's what made sense to me. And I should just do Asian until like they would like write down like the rules on the board, and if they added it in, I would do white. But I kept on doing Asian because I'm like, no, I'm not white, and I didn't care.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. Like I could like from my whole life I think I probably checked off like 3 or 4 different boxes. You know what I mean? Other, I might
Or
have
other,
fill
yeah.
it in. White, I put in African American, a couple times, and then I put Asian in there too. It got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pick something different today. You know what I mean? Because like we're not represented anyways. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we weren't represented on any of the boxes. So it was like I might as well just look out for this side right here, for today. If I knew like I was gonna do a good job on the thing, I was
Had a taco, I'm a Hispanic.
Yeah, exactly. Had some fun with it.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely something serious though, and it's sad, but hopefully we can get there in 2030. We're gonna do like a halfway mark right quick, Ramsey, and we're gonna go ahead and run our second ad of today, which is we're gonna talk about the where's it at right there? The Balkan House restaurant. I don't know where's the sign. I think it's right here on the right of me. Shout out to the Balkan House restaurant. Definitely should try them if you guys ever get the chance. They have great cevapis and doner kebab. So shout out to the Balkan House. We're gonna run the ad, and then we're gonna continue on with this conversation. The Balkan House restaurant. The Balkan House restaurant is famous for their doner kebab sandwich. But did you know that the Balkan House now serves breakfast? Did you also know that all their food is 100% halal? The Balkan House now also have 2 food trucks, so you can book your next party or event with the Balkan House on wheels. Their Hamtramck location is 3028 Kniff Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. Their Ferndale location is 314 West 9 Mile Road, Ferndale, Michigan. Again, you can book their food trucks for your next party or event. So if you're looking for a nice place to eat with friendly service and great prices, look no further than the Balkan House restaurants. So today's topic again is about underrepresentation in social and systemic frameworks. We are discussing it. We've dove into it. My next question is pretty silly, so I'm actually going to skip after that. It was a simple question of, do you think people of color are still underrepresented? And that was obviously a yes, okay? But let's dive into women, okay? Do you think women are still underrepresented? Wow, I can't even say that right. In the social and systemic frameworks. So do you think women, I'm going to start off with you, Sarah.
Well, you know what they say, it's a man's world. So where do we
Is it
fit
still
in?
a man's world?
Absolutely. 110%.
Can we at least say it's gotten better?
Of course,
Okay.
but I do feel like it's a man's world. But, and listen, I don't mind it being a man's world. To be honest with you, it's just, the man has to keep, like, we've always talked about roles and whatnot, But I think the one thing that pisses or makes me mad about it is just the pay. The pay.
Yeah, to me that's crazy.
That's crazy.
I can't believe that people are getting underpaid
Like, how does that happen?
for the same job. Like, to
How
me,
does
that's
that
crazy.
happen?
Like, in the United States of America, like other countries, whatever, I understand because, they're a little different. But in the U.S., statistically, women are getting paid less than the same jobs as men.
Yeah.
And obviously, then you got the roles of women and men and how the women are still not in those roles, even though they qualify and all that other stuff.
For
but
sure.
It just drives me nuts because
Here's what I want.
there's women that are single raising kids on their own, and they'll have the same job as a single male man and still be getting less. Like, how is that fair? I don't know.
Yeah.
That needs work on.
what are you about to say, Abby?
My coworker, she said she was listening to something, I don't know what, but she made a great point. I was like, wow, that is so true. She was like that society teaches boys to be brave and teaches girls to be perfect. So a boy would be, or a man would be more likely to go for a job that's he's not qualified for. Like, he's not even like, you know what I'm saying? But he's like, I'm gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? While the girl would be like, no, I'm not qualified. I can't do that. And if she does get the job, she'll accept, it's that mentality that they're building in us since we're at a young age. So it's like, I don't know. It's never fair.
That's how I started approaching jobs.
Good.
I had developed imposter syndrome, especially being at U of M. And so whenever I apply to something, I'm just like, I'm going to approach this with the audacity of a white man. Like, that's how it works.
I need to learn that from you, honestly. And pick that up.
Sada, you're so right about, like, it being a patriarchal world. And honestly, what I've learned more is that in progressive spaces, the inherent divide between men and women might not be so prominent. We might have progressed in that. But then the divide between white women and women of color is like the most exacerbated problem. Because when people talk about like the improvement of the world via feminism and all these things, it's often through the lens of a white woman. And so we haven't, or I guess we have begun conversations about this, but being a POC woman in certain spaces, or even just being like a Muslim woman, I don't call myself a POC simply because I am super white passing, but like the racialization of hijab sort of makes me identify with that group, if that makes sense. And it's definitely been a barrier because I've started to mentally approach this job with the audacity of a white man to approach this job with the audacity of a white woman.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt the same, Noor.
Yeah, I for sure have a similar experience in feeling like, especially at U of M, that you mentioned the imposter syndrome. Being around people that are of a very different income bracket than what I'm used to in Dearborn is something that feeds into my imposter syndrome, because these kids that are here had SAT prep courses and private tutors and came from private high schools and just everything, like, they're super prepared.
Set up.
Everything's set up for them. And I came from Fortson High School where people, no hate to Fortson, but like in the halls of Fortson, people speak in sentence fragments. And it's very different, and
That was very polite.
yeah. And so like very different environment, going from a public high school, you know, a Title I high school where like the school is split up between the ELL kids, you have the Gen Ed kids, and you had the AP kids. And so like even like being in the AP type of track at Fortson didn't prepare me for the exposure that I'm like, you know, still trying to navigate through my last year at Ann Arbor. For sure, like I feel most of the time that everyone in the classroom is
Oh, you're fine.
sorry, is up here, you know. Is up
I'll
here.
move it.
And I'm like here, you know, where I am naturally, and I have to work 10 times as hard, not to be better than them, but just to meet them where they are.
Yep.
You know, and that for sure goes into like you know, the topic of representation and underrepresentation, because big schools like Ann Arbor and like, you know, whatever, like they love to fill a diversity quota. So like, you know, they'll like ask us to post up, you know, in the school
Yeah,
magazine.
that's why
or, like,
I'm actually really shocked that you guys are like, you know,
yeah.
not
Very-
negatively talking, but like I would have thought like you know, it's very diverse and unified over there. Like I
no.
Welcome.
No, they said
it's-
Ann Arbor, not
it-
East Lansing. East Lansing's
No,
the difference.
for sure.
It has a lot.
Okay, show you.
And, calm down.
We don't like it too much in Ann Arbor, but
It's better
you
than
know, whatever. But yeah, for sure, like I don't know what I was talking about, but yeah, they like to fill the diversity quota, but then when it comes, you know, when we make it into the school, and we're in these classrooms, when we're in these spaces, they don't have programs, they don't have like you know, opportunities for us to prepare ourselves, and they don't have resources basically for us to like accommodate that like difference
That gap.
between that, you know, that gap for sure. So like they like to fill a diversity quota, but they don't like to take care of us when we're there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I know we kind of talked about what we miss out on, but like, what are some benefits when people are represented well and you know, they are at the table, quote unquote, speaking, right? What are some of the benefits that a community can see, an organization can see, a group of people can see? I mean, I know this could be, it's a very broad, you know, you could talk about schools, you could talk about, you know, the cities, but what are some benefits when certain backgrounds or, you know, are represented in a systemic or social framework?
Obviously, besides the monetary educational benefits, as I was saying before, when you are represented in a utopian world, the degree of white people, when you're represented to the degree of white people, once again, you get to speak for yourself. Not every essay that you write to get a scholarship or to be accepted to a program has to be about your
Trauma dumping.
identity. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I often sit there and I wonder, like, what do non-children of immigrants write about?
Yeah, literally.
Like,
what struggle did you go through?
I think sports injuries a lot of the time.
I'm dead.
Like,
My grandma was a doctor and wanted me to become
yeah, and obviously, like, our experiences are so important to who we are as people, but I want to see the day where we can represent ourselves as our own individual people rather than having to carry the burden of representing an entire community, because that is taxing. It
Or
takes
religion.
Yes, exactly. Like, I started community organizing and like political involvement in high school.
Yeah.
And when I was talking about the Ann Arbor white person, it's a neoliberal person who's very invested in these causes, but not necessarily in the right way. And so I was often the only person with this identity in the space. And so it was always on me to inform them of the Arab or Muslim perspective on anything. And I was happy to do that because it's necessary at this point of time in our society. But it became very, very, very tiring.
Yep.
And
And
I started,
pressure.
I started to feel like there was this pressure on me where I couldn't just operate as my own person.
Individual.
So like I said, in this space, it was our identity was not even underrepresented. It wasn't represented at all. I was the representation. And so we're hoping to move past that and sort of flood these spaces with our own, and so that our experiences are simply part of a narrative. We don't have to go through the labor of introducing it and explaining it and defending it.
Yes.
And I'm sure, Noor, you can speak to this, defending the legitimacy of your existence and your experiences.
Yeah. I always have really interesting experiences at airports. Not with people being like, not with TSA and like systemically, but just like with people that are there. I remember I was flying from Chicago back to Detroit, and there was this white guy in front of me. He was old white guy, maybe mid-50s. And I was like doing a little jog just to get in line because my plane, started to board and stuff. And yeah, he saw me running, and then we just got to talking, and we were just talking about some like white people, like small talk, like track in high school and whatever, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so like we were just like talking about small talk, whatever. And then I guess we were seated next to each other on the plane, and so he was at the seat adjacent to my seat, and he obviously observed that I practiced hijab, and he asked me where I was from, and told him I'm from Iraq. And then the infamous experience that accompanies being Iraqi wherever I go is someone telling me that their dad, brother, nephew, son served in the military.
Yeah.
And so this guy goes, yeah, Iraq. Yeah. I served in northern Iraq for like 3 years or whatever term type of thing. And I'm like, cool. He's like, yeah. I was a part of the intelligence team where basically he was explaining to me the role of how he used to interrogate people. And of course, like, this is a very heavy topic for me because like my father was subject to these types of interrogations. He spent 8 years in Abu Ghraib, basically concentration camp with my uncles and my grandfather, and they were tortured by the U.S. military. And so he was telling me that he worked there for a while, but then one of his bosses told him something that really struck a chord with him. And I'm like, well, what was this, sir? And then he goes, he said, the moment that you begin to enjoy what you do is the moment you know you should stop. And then he goes, so I stopped. So he was just basically insinuating that he was beginning to enjoy interrogating,
yeah.
Whatever. And so
This
like
is very awkward to just.
Yeah, no,
it's
and
a very
they
deep
expect it. Like, they expect when they say it, they expect you to, like, feel a sense of relatability to them.
Yeah.
Like, like, yo, I served in Iraq. Now we're freaking cousins. Like, it just really does not, it doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of, circling back to the idea of representation is regaining control over the narrative in a way where we don't have to sit there and smile. I want to, like, one day, for me not to explain to a person that what they're saying is offensive, what they're saying is wrong. I want society to get to a point where people understand that that's a taboo to talk about.
Mutual
That you basically, like, I don't know.
You make.
like, yeah.
We understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. I don't know if everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of being the person, like, and I say this all the time. I try not to, like, I don't get offended. Like, I tell people, it's okay, ask me, I won't get offended. But I'm tired of saying that.
Yeah.
I'm tired of having to say, oh, it's okay, ask me, I won't get offended. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
why do I have to answer some stupid questions? Like, why is it I'm still teaching certain things? Like, no, I don't wear the hijab when I'm sleeping. No, I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I want to be that person because obviously, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Like, I want, and eventually it'll stop. But it's like, I'm still that person it's okay. I won't get offended. Like, just go ahead and say what you want, what you.
And it goes
Yeah.
back to the burden of feeling like you have to represent an entire people.
Yeah.
Like, you have to answer those questions so the people that are asking them don't go away with a bad taste in their mouth about who you are and who your people are. And I want to, like, again, get to a point where we don't have that stress, as Zaynab mentioned, on ourselves, and just have the people that are the perpetrators of these curiosities to understand that this is not something that they should be asking. We're not subjects here to answer these questions that with if you basically perceived us as equals in the sense of like you're seeing us as actual human beings, you wouldn't ask these questions.
Yeah.
You wouldn't ask
I
these
want to say
questions.
something. I'm sorry. And then this is probably a story but something recently happened. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this because I didn't speak up, because I'm just been taught to be more, conformed or whatever. So we were on the bus. We were going to D.C. And the bus driver, he was, African-American Christian. And before we would go on the road, he would make a prayer. And then at the end, like he said, I would respect that everybody's, quiet, whatever, when I'm saying my prayer, whatever. And then at the end, he'd say, in God's name, Jesus, we trust, whatever. No one said anything the first couple of days. I was just quiet. Like, I didn't say amen or whatever. Just quiet. I let him do his thing. The last day, some of the kids were whispering in the back. And mind you, the majority of the bus is Muslim. Like, literally, let's say 5 out of the 22 kids were not Muslim.
Yeah.
So some kids were whispering in the back. And he goes, he says, some of you guys don't know how to pray or don't know. Like, he said, like, I made a comment like that after because people were whispering. And then our assistant principal, I was very proud of her at that moment. I was like, oh my God. Like, I was so proud of her. She's not Muslim. She's white, Christian, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure what her religion is, but she's white. She was like, no. You are not going to impose your religion on these children. They are Muslim. They don't believe in, Jesus is not their God. So you can't do that. Well, we don't want them to make us pray during their prayer. You don't have to make them pray during your prayer. Like she literally stood up for us. And I'm just like, I was in shock because I didn't know what to say. Like, it was embarrassing enough to say, like, this older man, like, I didn't want to be rude. I just wanted to just take us to the destination. But she stood up for us. And honestly, at that moment, I was just like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how I felt, but at that moment, I was like, man, like, I wish I had
more of that.
The courage
Oh.
to like.
It's a lack of courage. I think we're just so socialized to be nice.
Yeah.
For fear of us being perceived in any other way that we have to tolerate this. In fact, something I began to notice was like, as we're, I guess, entering a more progressive era or like woke era, there are things that are still acceptable, as Noor was mentioning, to be done to us that is completely unacceptable or considered unacceptable to even other racial or ethnic minorities. And so that sort of like doubles down the feeling of isolation because it almost feels like there's equality and progression for others but not for us, which I'm very happy that people are getting the equity that they've been fighting for so long. But it's like it almost makes you wonder, like, when is it going to be our turn?
So I'm so happy that you said this because hearing everybody's answers and the topic's about underrepresentation and that's what the topic is. And I know
Uncle Shop.
I know some of you guys. That's my Uncle Shoop. Sorry, all phone calls go through here, so sometimes personal ones. But long story short, it's and I know people are gonna want to hear this, but we're still in the beginning stages. Every time I think of where we are at, when I say we Muslim, people who follow the religion of Islam, we are, every time I look at where we are at, I always look at where African Americans are at in the United States of America, and to me, it's like they're just, if it's anything, because they're still dealing with stuff till this day, and so it's like they were kind of in this country at least before us. And just in the world, too. Like, we keep on saying America. It's not just in America. It's everywhere. Everywhere where Muslims are at, there's underrepresentation in a country where they're not the majority, So it's like, I look at it like, man, we have so much time to go. And I know you guys don't want to deal with it, but, like, we're just cracking, we're just cracking open. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, we're just opening the book. Like, we are going to be the trailblazers. Unfortunately, I don't even know. I might be too late even for your own son in a way because, like, this is a long process that, we just got to keep doing what we're doing. And it might take years, decades, but inshallah, the goal, right, is to get there. But, it's unfortunate. And that's what the topic is. And we want to see the change. Yeah. But if we're being realistic here, it's probably not going to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, it's for
sadly.
sure like just using the communities that came before us and the
Yeah.
political activists and organizers that died fighting for their causes, using them as a blueprint
Yeah.
to guide our community's journey to where we want to be.
Yeah.
Educating ourselves,
For sure.
Yeah.
knowing our rights, building our character.
Building our networks.
Yes.
For sure.
And that is my next question: is what are the solutions? What are the solutions? Like, what is it people need to start doing right now to like hopefully get to that stage or that step? So you're kind of saying some things. Noor, you
Yeah.
want to add on to it?
So one thing that I think could be very impactful in combating underrepresentation is to diversify our networks. So we can take inspiration from the Jewish community in this sense. Jewish people after the Holocaust who immigrated into the United States, they're like a new set of immigrants in a population where they don't have many resources. And at this time, the categorization of white, Jews weren't considered white at the time, and they were still going through like systemic issues, basically similar to a similar place to where our community is now, and what the Jewish people, the Jewish immigrants did that I think we could take inspiration from is, to this day, Jewish communities are incredibly diverse in where and in what spheres their people operate.
They're everywhere.
Communities that are strong and that have strongholds and that are, powerful in the sense of being established and having strong networks is a community that is diverse in where its people place themselves and in what spaces they occupy. We have like a thing in the Arab community, a tendency to only expect our children to go into high income yield jobs, like being a physician or engineer or a lawyer or like a whatever type of profession that establishes financial security. And although that's great, and although that's kind of expected because most of our parents are immigrants, that gave up everything to be here and had so many sacrifices and just struggled their entire life with like income, that they don't want their kids to have the same struggle. So it makes sense. I don't blame Arab parents or like ethnic parents in general to want their kids to occupy these spaces because they don't want them to go through the same struggles that they're enduring.
Yeah.
But at the same time, kind of limiting your child's potential to fields where we're really concentrated now. There's like 100,000 Arab doctors, lawyers, engineers. Okay, خلاص فهمنا, but like there aren't enough Arab like storytellers, musicians, directors, photographers.
That's true.
Public speakers, public intellectuals, academics. There are so many spaces that if we are able to in the future push our kids to pursue in careers to push them toward, it would diversify our network, it would expand our network, and it would being in these spaces as a Arab, interacting with artists that are of different identities, and being in your position and holding your identity, you would be able to share your life story with them in exchange, and learn from them in exchange. And so diversifying our network will allow us to reach more people and dismantle the stereotypes and preconceived notions that so many people have of us in these different spaces. And the only way we're going to be able to combat this, and the only way we're going to be able to, break through these stereotypes and really create substantial change is by occupying these spaces.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Sada, you want to add on to that? Like, why do you feel, what are some solutions that you feel can help with, underrepresentation?
I think it also starts from the stem, us Arab being unified together first. We, the ones from here are better and the ones from there are lower or whatever it may be. If we get together and we are one word or one say or one one in general, they could probably take us serious as well. Because like we're in war with each other, we're fighting with each other, and it's like, okay, why can't we just fight with them as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that as not even Muslims, as just, you know, Arabs together, because it, you know, there's all types of religions in those regions, but being together and just, you know, supporting each other and helping each other the way, you know, America helps every other country and whatnot, would really make it take them more seriously, and just, you know, the steps, have that step, because we can't have America, you know, unify us if we're not unified, you know, back home.
For sure. Like,
No, great point.
does anyone want to talk? I feel like I'm talking so much.
No.
Okay.
Honestly,
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Zaynab.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
go.
Did you have something to say, Zaynab?
I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that, Sada, because I grew up, obviously, as you guys know, like in a very multicultural family. Like I was raised with the values that like no Muslim is better than another Muslim.
Yeah,
Like,
I love that.
thank you. This idea of like superiority and nationalism among us, it went right over my head. I didn't personally witness it until I grew up, and I was hearing about people like wanting to get married, like, oh yeah, this Lebanese guy came and asked for my hand, but my parents said no because he's not from our country. Or like even like I had this Palestinian friend. She's like, yeah, my parents said no because he's not from our village. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Yeah.
It was such a foreign concept to me,
Yeah.
because in my head it was like, I
It's
took it
very-
very literally. If we're Muslim, that's all that matters. And of course, cultural differences can make things more complicated, but it got to the point of like the superiority
Yeah.
where we are putting each other down. And honestly, the nationalism that was introduced to us by Europeans is now being carried on by us. Like before there was Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, there was just Bilad al-Sham. There was like
Yeah.
we were in regions. And so obviously those regions had their individual cultures, but there was also like a very unified front. It wasn't until like we were divided to little tiny pieces, and then those borders started like defining who we are and whether we're better or worse than others, that I feel like it's hindering our progress truly.
Yeah.
Because what other communities do so well is that the moment there's an issue affecting them, unified front immediately. We can't even sort out our own issues.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Noor.
Yeah,
has
no,
something
what you were
say
about to
on
say
that.
now. I'm sorry about that.
It's totally fine. This topic makes me really emotional sometimes, because it's really crazy to think about how many boundaries and barriers we've created between each other as Arab.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, there's like very diverse spectrum that exists within the Arab identity. You know, a Syrian Arab is very different than a Moroccan Arab, for example. There's differences in dialogues, in dialects, differences in food and dress. But generally speaking, like, I always like to reference this example, and I'm going to use like geographic, I guess, placements. So the distance between the heart of Baghdad and Jerusalem is less than 8 hours. The distance between Baghdad and like the westernmost part of Syria, where my family, you know, used to go, you know, to Latakia, which is on the western border of Syria, for vacations when I was younger, it's less than 10 hours. And that's kind of like driving from Michigan to Kentucky, right? And when let's say you're driving from Michigan to Kentucky. Do you like see a gradient of a totally different culture when you're from Michigan and when you're from Kentucky?
No.
Like, does the culture completely change? Do they not identify themselves as American? Do they not identify themselves as whatever? Like, that small distance should not be enough evidence to render all these boundaries that we have on each other and to draw these differences. Like there's not that many differences that are between us, and so like kind of taking inspiration from the European ideals of like dividing everyone into a category, dividing everyone into a class in a system. like it for sure is really prevalent in our community. But like if we're talking about post-colonial studies and just how things were before, we never really had like borders that like made us distinct groups before. There was a bus that would drive every single day from Al-Quds to Kuwait to Baghdad and go back to Palestine to Al-Quds on the same day. There's not that big of a distance. There's not that big of a difference. And it wasn't until like it's really crazy to think about how many aspects of Western culture has been brought into Blad al-Arab and has just completely destroyed the beauty of our cultures and the beauty of our collective brotherhood.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just taking that and then and like kind of using Dearborn as an example to how these effects, you know, look in real time is crazy, because like in Dearborn we all like obviously experience right when you enter the social hierarchy that exists between Lebanese, Levantine Arab, Yemenis, Iraqis. Like they're ranked however depending on when that group of immigrants came into the country and how established they are. Like the Lebanese wave preceded the Iraqi wave, so the Lebanese people are more established, they have more networks, they have like, you know, they're in different places and in a different situation than Iraqi immigrants that started coming in here like 10 years ago, or Yemeni immigrants that, you know, after the Arab Spring happened started to frequent these spaces in communities. Like seeing this social hierarchy and how much it's impacted our lives individually is just evidence as to how we've allowed Western ideals to like seep into our brotherhood. You know, it's just crazy to think about.
Ramsey, can you just give a round of applause for everybody's answers? I think there's some great answers. Abby, did you want to add on to that or no?
So I wanna kind of bring hope into this. I feel like it's our turn. It's our turn to teach our it's our turn to teach our children that doesn't exist. Just like how you grew up in a situation where you didn't even see it, but, you know, alhamdulillah, your parents are both from different, you know, parts of the world or whatever, different cultures. That's why, you know, you were able to come into this world the way that you have viewed it. We need to teach our children that there is no difference, you know, and it's going to take some time. I do see a little bit of a difference, but even in the Yemeni culture, there's so many caste systems that they have that is just ridiculous. At this point, you know, teach our children to be good people. You know, we could only look toward the future. We can only live in the present and work towards the future, you know, but obviously learn from the past.
Yeah.
So I really think it's our turn. It's our job to teach our children that, you know, and help build their confidence, make them believe that they can do whatever they want. Don't put them in a box and expect them to be okay with that box, because they're not going to succeed. If you have a predetermined life that you want for your child, they're not going to succeed. You have to understand what they like, what you're hindering their capabilities of what they could bring to the society, you know, what their, you know, purpose is. So at the end of the day, everybody's different. And like you said, we need to network. We need to build our network. We need to jump into different careers and place our children in different places and not, you know, make them feel ashamed that they like a certain thing or they want to go into something, you know, different. So,
yeah, for sure. We're up next.
Yeah.
I think something that I grew up with was hearing, like, okay, when I was interested in politics, it was from a young age. Obviously, electoral politics are zibala, they're not going to save us. But I was like, oh, you know, as a 10-year-old, what if I run for Congress? My parents immediately go, no, they'll never take a Muslim in Congress.
Yep.
Like, but then, like, just a few years ago, I'm driving with my parents, and I see an Arabic name, Rashida Tlaib. I'm like, oh my God, there's an Arab woman running for Congress. Like, it's happening. And then she gets elected. And then this becomes more and more common. And so this hope started to grow more within me. And I think given more time, like, we'll be able to see that hope expand. Like, we're already on the come up. We just have to continue the trajectory.
For sure. And so I don't know if you know this, but we're about to go into the Motivate Me 313 minutes. Before we do that, though, we are going to run an ad, which is Juice Box and hamtramck. So, Ramsey, if you can, go ahead and run the Juice Box and hamtramck ad. And after we run the ad, this is the part where we, give a shout out to these ladies. We pull out the clip on social media, so for advice. So we'll dive into that. But go ahead, Ramsey, run that Juice Box and hamtramck ad, and then we'll go from there.
Juice Box and hamtramck. Juice Box and hamtramck is a new business that we've all been waiting for. If you're looking for a place with the best smoothies, milkshakes, ice cream, crepes, cereal bars, and slushies, then Juice Box and hamtramck is your one-stop shop. You can try things like their Biscoff or Nutella shakes, crepes, watermelon blasts, strawberry burst or mango smoothies, as well as cereal options such as Fruit Loops, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and Fruity Pebbles. They even have a comfortable outdoor patio/courtyard area that you and your friends can enjoy while trying those delicious drinks. So be sure to stop by Juice Box in Hamtramck. Location is 11647 Joseph Campo Avenue, and be ready to leave there with a big smile on your face. And if you're on the run, order your drink from their new Juice Box app, downloadable on all of your smartphone devices.
All right, so we are officially back. All right. Before we do this Motivate Me 313 minute, basically, this is where we, ask you a question. My sister will record, because like I said, this is the clip that we pull out. So basically, for on social media, and we'll put Motivate Me 313 minute. So if there's somehow you can keep it within 30 seconds, because reels can go over a minute and 30 and stuff like that. So that's kind of the number. But before we do that, I do want to say today's topic was about underrepresentation. It's a great conversation. We kind of dove into some specific topics as well. But, this is a topic that, like I said, we can have once a month, I feel like, because there's so many different avenues you can go about attacking this topic. And there's just so many conversations to be had that, and it's never going to go away, I feel like, for a while. So definitely something that we've talked about, we've touched on with other people as guests, but we didn't really have it like as a whole topic yet. So that's why when Noor mentioned that, I was like, yeah, you know what, this would be a great conversation to have, because we've literally been kind of touching on it with every single host that we've had. So with that said, I do want to say again, shout out to our sponsors. You got BC Adhesives, The Balkan House, Hanley International Academy, Qahwa House, and Juice Box and Hamtramck. Again, be sure to subscribe to all of our pages. You got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Apple and Spotify podcasts. All of those are under Oz Media, so be sure to subscribe, follow, listen to the show if you want to on Apple and Spotify. So those are ways that you can follow us. And now that Noor is back in the building, but we'll start off with you, Zaynab. And basically the question is, again, this is the Motivate Me 313 minute, Noor. We try to make these answers hopefully like 30 seconds long so that we can put it into a reel. So with that said, what advice do you have for someone who feels underrepresented? So what advice do you have for them?
I would suggest that, the saying, be the change you want to see in the world, rings true, even if it might be a bit laborious. Someone has to be the trailblazer. Obviously, while doing so, take care of yourself. But if you see yourself underrepresented in a space, then start with yourself. You can do whatever you want to do, despite what our parents and what our culture might tell us. If there's a goal that you have in mind, then absolutely pursue it. Because even if you're the first one, you won't be the only one. Other people will look to you and say, hey, if they did it, maybe I can. Being the first person or the only person, feeling alone temporarily or isolated, it's not always a bad thing.
There you go. Shout out to Zaynab. Ramsey, you want to go ahead and give her a round of applause? And then we'll dish it off to Noor. Same question. And, basically it's what advice do you have for someone who feels underrepresented?
Yeah, sure.
Hold, Ramsey, is there a mic on, by the way? Make sure his mic is on. Go ahead now. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Noor.
For sure. So a piece of advice I would give to people that feel underrepresented is, you don't have to be the trailblazer. You don't have to be this big advocate for everything in the world ever. You don't have to carry the burden of an entire ethnic group or like a race or anything. All you have to be is yourself. All you have to do is get into the spaces that you want to be in, that you see yourself succeeding in, and be the best at that. Don't allow the world, don't allow society to pressure you into agreeing to terms and conditions that you don't think you fit you identify as. And wherever you are, in whatever space you are, tell your story in a way that feels most authentic to you. The reason that we as Middle Eastern people have survived and preserved our culture for so long is due to the fact that we are natural born storytellers. Every single one of us has this God-given ability to tell a damn story, and we all have a story. And making sure that you know how to tell your story in a way that centers yourself, aside from, feeling the burden of representing everyone and everything around you. Just tell your own story and be yourself in that group. The only way to have people from outside of our community, look at us and humanize us, if that's our goal, is to be authentically human.
Mm-hmm.
And just share your own story. Your story doesn't have to be trauma. Your story doesn't have to be, I immigrated from Baghdad, I moved to Syria. My story is like that, but like, not everyone has to center their identity around trauma when you're identifying yourself as a Middle Eastern North African person. You can be happy. You can have a stable life. You can be anything you want to be. Just tell your story in a way that is true to yourself, and don't allow the burden of stereotypes and representing whoever weigh you down.
Go ahead and give that a round of applause. Shout out to Noor. Shout out to Zaynab. These ladies came in here and they spoke the truth. They definitely shared their insights and thoughts on this important topic, especially for the communities that we reside in or live around. And again, this was season 2, episode 36 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We had Zaynab and Noor. Topic was about underrepresentation in systemic and social frameworks. Sada, what is your final words, final comments on this week's show? We haven't been live in a while, by the way. It's been a couple weeks, so, but we won't be back next week. After that, though, we'll have Bilal Hamoud. Shout out to Bilal Hamoud. He'll be on the show.
Oh, Bilal.
Yeah.
We love Bilal.
Yeah, we love Bilal. Thank you for coming, as well.
It was a pleasure meeting you guys, and you guys really, this was a great conversation. I'm so, like I said, I'm so proud of, younger Muslim beautiful girls are doing great things and prospering, and it's only going to come up from here.
Irene, what are your thoughts?
You guys
Final thoughts.
You guys are giving me hope.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I'm proud of you guys. Keep going. Keep plastering your face in front of their faces, Do what you got to do,
Be safe, though. I know your families might end up listening, and they'll be like, what do you tell about plastering?
Zainab's favorite sentence is, I'm not afraid to go to prison.
I can see that.
Oh, you about it? Yeah, I'm about it.
Noor and Zaynab, you got any final comments you want to say, too?
I commented too much to have any final comments, Zaynab.
Everything that you've said has been
amazing.
Yeah.
You're so sweet. Thank
How
you.
about you, Zaynab?
I just want to thank you guys for fostering these conversations in a space where these things kind of just go understood but never really discussed. So yeah, I'm honored to be a part of this. Thank you for having
Doing
me.
what you're doing is combating underrepresentation.
Exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming on and sharing your stories. And as I always say, if you have anyone else or any other topic, always feel free to send them our way. We love to have these kind of conversations. So we appreciate it. We hope that you enjoyed this show. Again, season 2, episode 36 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We will not be live next week, but we'll be live the following week with Bilal Hamoud. Looking forward to that conversation. A great guy from the community as well. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to subscribe and follow, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks.